good evening. And it's Wednesday, September 14th. And thanks so much for being here. And welcome to Everyday Talk 24/7. Really great to have you here tonight. I want to read a passage tonight in 2 Samuel. And the question, the thought, the everyday thought for today is, what is it that makes you furious? What just drives you through the roof? And then, does that say something about you? Well, I think we have some help here in this narrative in 2 Samuel, which can kind of shed some light on that and maybe give us some insight. I know it's been very insightful for me, and I pray that it will for you too. And we're going to start a new series tonight. I don't know if it'll be consecutive, but I'm going to keep coming back to it, and I'll talk more about it at the end of the video. But I'm just going to pick up the story here. Nathan is a prophet, and he's coming to David to challenge him with something. But instead of taking David head on and calling him out for his sin, he lets David convict himself of his own sin. Notice what happens. So the Lord sent Nathan the prophet to David to tell him the story. So this is what Nathan tells him. There were two men in a certain town. One was rich and one was poor. The rich man owned a great many sheep and cattle. The poor man owned nothing but one little lamb that he bought. He raised this little lamb, and it grew up with his children. It ate from the man's own plate and drank from his cup. He cuddled it in his arms like a baby daughter. One day, a guest arrived at the home of the rich man. But instead of killing an animal from his own flock, he took the poor man's lamb and killed it and prepared it for his guests. This is the story that Nathan tells to David. And what is David's response? David was furious. As surely as the Lord lives, he vowed, any man who would do such a thing deserves to die. He must repay 4 lambs to the poor man for the one that he stole, and for having no pity. Now, if you're familiar with the story, Nathan is coming to David after his sin with Bathsheba. After he had taken Uriah's wife to be his own and arranged for Uriah to be killed. But instead of leading with that, instead of stating that which is obvious, the Lord has Nathan tell him this story. And this is a valuable story because notice David's reaction. He's furious. And he's right. He should have been furious. This was a despicable act that was done. It was unselfish. There's no compassion, no pity, no appreciation for this brave, poor farmer, nor any sense of what the rich man had robbed from this man. Not just the lamb, but all the joy and wonder of that. And David gets it. He understands exactly. So he flies into a rage. And he demands that this man be held accountable for what he's done. He is just absolutely out of his mind mad. What does that tell us about David? Should he have been equally upset about what he did with Bathsheba and Uriah? But instead he had pushed that aside, shoved it to the corner, and lived life as everything was fine. Of course, the problem was everything wasn't fine. That sin that he had committed was with him. It was haunting him. But he was ignoring the reality of it by thinking he'd close his eyes and it was going to go away. It looked like the Lord had blessed him and blessed Bathsheba with a baby. And so David's thinking everything is fine. It's all covered up. I've taken the steps necessary to protect myself. Of course, the problem is he did this all, as we were looking at last week, he did this all before the eyes of God. David thought he could hide, but you can't hide from God. So God, in his graciousness and kindness, sends Nathan to tell him the story. And you see the value of this. By using this type of interaction, David convicted himself. David acknowledged all that was wrong without even realizing it. So what does that say about you and about me when we get furious? Maybe our kind of just outrageous, furious anger sometimes is masking something that we ourselves have not come clean with God before. Just something to think about. We're going to spend some time looking at this portion here in 2 Samuel. We're going to look at Psalm 51, and I'm creating a playlist on this, and the playlist is going to name the title of the playlist is Nathan, David, and You. So between 2 Samuel 12 and Psalm 51, we'll get a pretty full picture of what was actually Nathan was bringing to David's attention, and why it's something we need to be very much aware of ourselves. What makes you furious? Think about that. And then take a good long look at your own heart and think, what is that saying about you? Don't go beat yourself up. Just realize that God was gracious to David in sending Nathan. And God is gracious to us in sending his Spirit to open our eyes to things that perhaps we're blind to. And we're going to get into this more deeply. So this is just a start. But tonight, just turn it over in your mind. What makes you furious? And what can we learn about ourselves from it? And that's the thought for this night. So great to have you here tonight. If you want to check us out at Everyday Talk 24/7, please do that. We've got all kinds of resources on the website there. If you haven't subscribed, turn on post notifications. These videos will come right to you. Thank you so much for being here. Such a privilege to be able to talk to you each day. And Lord willing, we'll see you tomorrow. And we'll talk more about Nathan, David, and You. Have a great night. Bye-bye.